What's up? Okay, this video has two aims. One is going to try to explain once and for all exactly what I believe about political processes and what I think that, what system do I support. The other one is going to try to explain certain systems. Because there's an argument going on with my Anarchy vid that I put up recently, and the two people arguing, one of them seems to kind of understand the other one doesn't fully understand the other at all, and it's causing a lot of conflict. So I'm basically going to try to explain both sides, and hopefully I'll clear that up, but I'm also going to put my opinion on it all. And it actually ties back into some video I put in before on governments and why I think all of them are flawed. So if you want a little bit more explanation, go check out that video too. Now, here's the thing that I've noticed a theme with a lot of anarchists, and it's something that people anarchists call them statists. I'm sure that people who support states don't necessarily consider themselves a crew, but I'm just going to say this anyway. Anarchists have a concept, and it's based on the thing that governments, most forms of government, in order for the systems to work, there ultimately has to be a threat of violence. Now, you might be wondering, where the hell are you getting that from? Well, Sidewinder Anarchist already has plenty of videos explaining this very thing, but I'll try to sum it up in my not as experienced tongue. Basically, it goes like this. All the laws that they come up with and all the institutions that governments and states come up with, if we break the law, there's a consequence. But the funny thing is, if you don't agree with a certain thing, there's a consequence. The consequence is usually a fine or getting thrown in jail, or worse, getting killed off. Not just by a death penalty, but maybe by soldiers coming to your home. Now you might be thinking, we've never gone to that. Yes, we have come to that before. It's called the Civil War. And then the interesting thing about that is, if you look at the way the Constitution was written, before Abraham Lincoln decided to put his own interpretation into it, the states actually had every right to secede. But because he wanted a complete dominion, the federal dominion over everything, he's like, nah, you guys don't have the right, and it came down to a threat of violence, which led to war. Think about what's happening with Georgia and South Odessa right now. That's a perfect example of the violence that a state can cause. A group of people democratically voted that we no longer want to be part of this country, we want to be part of Russia. Georgia was like, fuck that, no, we don't care if you guys voted in your own constitution, you're not leaving. And so went with the threat of violence. This is what anarchists are arguing against all the time, saying that it's states that cause this sort of bullshit simply because of their need to keep power and keep control. So, and they also, as a corollary to that, see anyone who supports the state actions as somebody who supports this type of violence. It's the same thing as when you accuse a religious fanatic of supporting some of the unjust laws in the Bible, even though they're saying, I don't believe in that. Yeah, but you support the religion, and yet you don't fight against these things. Therefore, in essence, you are supporting these things, whether you like it or not. You're complicit in it. That's at least their charge. That's their argument. So for those who are wondering why the hell they're accusing me of such things, this is why. You have to see their argument, and you have to see the way governments work to understand that. Now, if you are against the state doing such things, well, that's another argument, and then you can argue about how you can fight against those type of topics. But you have to at least understand, the stance that they're coming from. Now, I've been asked several times by many people through private messages or through comments and stuff, exactly what is my stance on anarchy? And I've given answers before, but I don't think I gave a full explanation. The simplest answer I can give is that I'm sort of for it. I agree with a lot of the ideals of anarchy, and that's simply because I've always been a rebellious person and I don't really like authority. That's just me. I would rather live a life without some organization trying to enforce their views on me. This is also one of the reasons why I rebel against religion, I rebel against any type of organization that's trying to put their worldview on my life without me having a say in it. My son agrees. But on the other hand, I stopped short of saying that we should all try to move to an anarchy now, for the simple reason that people simply aren't ready for it yet. And the reason why people aren't ready for it yet is because they don't want freedom. I stated this in another vid. Human beings simply, right now in this stage in time, most of them, especially in the US, are simply not ready for freedom, true freedom, to be self-sufficient. I mean, you don't need to look for much to get evidence of that. We have America has a huge population of people that are religious. If you truly believed in freedom, you would not be religious, because religion ultimately is about a life code that you are living by, because you do not believe that you can make up your own code. You have to follow somebody else's. In this case, gods or the priests. They have a set rules for set amount of rules for you to follow, and they say if you follow this rule, you'll be a good person, and you just follow it. You don't sit down and think to yourself, what do I think is a good person? And try to make it up as you go along, or try to experience life as you go along. That's freedom, and that type of freedom is too freaking scary for people. A majority of people on this earth simply can't live that way. So if they can't even live that way with a life code, what makes you think they're going to be able to live that way without a government? Because people aren't ready for that yet, that's why I cannot fully endorse it. Not because I think it's a bad idea, but people just aren't ready for it yet. And another problem is, just like every other system of government, anarchy too, just like I said in another video I put up about the flaw of governments, is based off an ideal. This ideal is everybody wants to be free, or the majority of people want to be free and are capable of being self-sufficient. It's not true. Most people want a government not because they support governments being violent, but simply because they would rather have somebody else making all the decisions of how to rule. I mean, think about it. So much is out of your hands when you have a government. You don't got to worry about how to fight crime. You don't got to worry about defending your borders. You don't got to worry about how to get the roads paved. You don't got to worry about how to make public transportation for everyone. You don't got to worry about a healthcare system. None of this you got to worry about. Now, you might argue that, well, I don't got to worry about it in an anarchy either. But in many ways you do, because if you don't have that infrastructure, somebody out there is going to have to try to put it together. When you have anarchy, you don't have one. This is something, by the way, that a lot of businesses deal with when you talk about centralization and decentralization. There are pros and cons for either system. When you have centralization, you have one body of systems working with everything. But the con with it is that when you have this one body trying to control everything, things get cluttered up. This is one of the reasons why those, the people who are arguing against one systematic system of healthcare, saying that it would get bogged down. The government doesn't know how to do shit, so everything's going to get bogged down and the healthcare system's going to suck. So they would rather have decentralization, which is more of an anarchist point of view. You have all these different centers controlling things, each to their own station and each to their own system of expertise. The only problem is you'll end up with redundancy. You'll have so many systems all doing the same thing. And yeah, people would rather go to the best one or the better one, but sometimes the better one isn't close by, or there's so many better ones. One thing I've noticed about businesses is that they all keep trying to talk about how one is better than the other, and you realize they're really offering you the same damn product, just with a different cover on it. So after a while, I mean, I could, just from my own experience, the sword market right now, just to put my little interest in there. There's so many companies out there offering swords, which they're pretty much the same product. And yes, some prices, they vary, some are higher, some are lower, but I'm also finding many of them that are offering pretty much the same quality for the same price. But they're all trying to say that they're better, and they're not. So many products are like that, and that's when you end up with all this redundancy and then all this confusion. You then start thinking to yourself, wouldn't it just be better if there was just one guy handling this shit, since they all do the same fucking thing? Again, pros and cons. We can argue forever about which is the better system, because the point is, there really is no better system. This is what I'm trying to get at, and it's hard for me to explain. And my son is trying to lecture me on this. This is what I'm trying to explain. At the end of the day, there really is no system better than the other, because it all depends on an ideal, which really isn't true at the time. Whatever is the better system happens to be the system that can fit the people at the time. There are some people who are ready for anarchy. There are some places that aren't. There are some places that would work better with communism. There are some places that would work better with dictatorships, and so on and so forth. What's the best system is what the people are ready for. And in this country, right now, they are not ready for anarchy. Hell, they aren't even ready for democracy. Many of these idiots walking around saying that we live in a democracy don't even realize that they're not living in a democracy. And I'm not even talking about the fact that their freedoms have been taken away. Ever since this country was first founded, we've been living under an oligarchy, not a democracy. There's a freaking difference. You know what? I'm not going to be able to do this all in one video. I'm going to put up another one where I'm going to try to explain a little bit more about why these systems are flawed, why you can't just depend on one system to cause everyone's needs, and why you have to be flexible enough to switch from one to another after a period of years. It's probably going to piss some people off, some people are probably going to get confused, but it's my thoughts on the matter. So stay tuned for the next one.